Finally, in the days of only 3 television channels, everyone knew the name Sandy Gall and recognised his craggy, lived-in face. He sat in this seat as one of the co-presenters of News at 10. Now, very sadly, at the grand old age of 97, he has died. He was the last of that generation from the heyday of the programme who had, as a foreign correspondent, been there and done everything. As a trainee walking through the doors of ITN 35 years ago, I was one of many young would-be reporters he inspired. He was a giant and a gentleman of our business. Everyone loved Sandy.
For decades, one of the most familiar faces on television, co-presenting News at 10 at a time when it was the most watched news programme in Britain.
Former Soviet Prime Minister
Sandy Gall was not a simple newsreader, but an authentic, hardened news reporter who also read the news.
Good evening. All the IRA hunger strikers are eating again.
Joining ITN in 1963, one of his first assignments was to Dallas, Texas, just hours after the world had been shaken by the assassination of President Kennedy.
From that high window in the center of Dallas, Texas, at about 1 p.m. last Friday, President Kennedy was assassinated. After 4 days in jail...
The world was changing fast, nowhere more so than in America's Deep South, as Martin Luther King fought for civil rights.
I asked him the aims of his campaign.
To get Negroes the right to vote.
As the US slid inexorably into war in Vietnam, Sandy Gall was, almost literally, the first in and last out.
They face pretty formidable odds down there.
There to see US troops come ashore in 1965.
We hope we don't get hit in the process.
One of the very few who dared to stay on after the North Vietnamese victory a decade later.
This is a historic moment, the arrival of the North Vietnamese regular army in Saigon.
And then we couldn't get out, of course. They cut off all communications, the North Vietnamese. It took us about 2 weeks to get out.
45 seconds to transmission.
The move into the News at 10 studio was not an obvious one, described by his editor as having the face of a benign pugilist enhanced by a minicab smash. Gall, alongside Alistair Burnett and Reggie Bosanquet, was one of the new breed of presenter reporters. But Sandy never lost the yearning to be on the road, and as the Mujahideen fought a 10-year guerrilla war against the Soviet army in Afghanistan, there was only one way to cover it: on foot, on horseback, weeks of travelling through the Hindu Kush.
Although travel with the Mujahideen is bad enough in summer, in winter it's extremely hard.
I think Sandy Gall was one of the most brilliant journalists I've known, and around his work, ITN was able to build an enormous reputation. He travelled the world, he covered wars, he covered political upheavals, and what he said, people believed. He gave ITN and News at 10 its credibility. When Sandy Gall said something, everybody believed it.
In 1992, at the age of 65, he finally decided he needed to slow down, though not without some regret. It couldn't go on forever, but for one of the greatest television journalists of his generation, what a career it was.
It certainly was. Great memories of Sandy Gall, whose old world charm and on-screen presence endeared him to so many viewers and so many of us. A good place to end. Good night. Thank you for watching.
If you have a problem, please get in touch with us.
Do you think that's acceptable?
We will put these points to the government on your behalf.
And ask directly that question. If it matters to you, it matters to us. We hear you. Good Morning Britain, weekdays from 6 on ITV1 and ITVX.